37.78. At the time of this recording, that's how many times better you can get if you improve by just 1% every single day for a year. On the flip side, that's also how many times worse you can get if you decline by 1% each day. This is the curve of tiny gains or tiny losses. It's a simple diagram inspired by James Clear's Atomic Habit. But don't let its simplicity fool you. Behind these lines lie a hidden truth, the very secret that separates people who achieve extraordinary lives from those who watch their dreams slowly slip away. Hey there, my name is Moses. If you're new to the channel, you're welcome, because from here on out, this is your home. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel, so a sub to the channel would be deeply appreciated. Okay, now let's look at this graph. The vertical lines represent results, the horizontal lines represent time. Now watch the two curves that start from the same point. This is the curve of tiny gains, getting just 1% better each day. Just below it is the curve of tiny losses, declining 1% each day. At first, the difference between them is microscopic. It feels like nothing's changing because on the results axis, both lines are hugging the baseline. But over time, those small choices don't stay small. They compound, they stack like bricks, and the shape of the curve begins to bend. The upper line slowly arcs upward and then accelerates. The lower line quietly sinks, then collapses down towards flat. See that dashed horizontal line cutting across the middle? Think of it as your everyday baseline, the threshold where tiny decisions live. Nudge just above it consistently and the result curve tilts up. Drift just below it and the curve tilts down. Give it enough time and the gap between those two trajectories becomes massive. Now, let's talk about how you can actually get nearly 40% better at anything. It is so easy to overestimate the importance of one big moment and underestimate the value of small improvement made every single day. You see, too often we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. Whether it is losing weight, starting a business, building a skill, or achieving any other type of goal, we put so much pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shaking move that everyone will notice. But the truth is, improving by just 1% a day doesn't feel like much. Sometimes it's not even noticeable, but over time, that tiny improvement makes all the difference. The poet Henry Longfellow understood this idea when he wrote, "Those heights reached and kept by great men was not attained by sudden flight." This reinforces the idea of 1% improvement. Just 1% improvement a day compounds to nearly 40% in a single year. Small steps taken consistently leads to extraordinary heights. Here's how the math works. This is the formula for tiny gains or tiny losses, where y is the final value. 1 is a constant because you are either improving or declining by 1%. R is the daily growth rate. For gains, it is positive 0.01. For losses, it is negative 0.01. And X is the time period, in this case a year, which is 365 days. Substitute the values to solve for both losses and gains. If you decline by 1% each day for 365 days, you'll end up 0.025 of whatever you started with. On the other hand, if you improve by 1% each day for 365 days, you'll end up 37.78 times better. But here's the problem. Our brains are wired to notice big wins and big losses and almost completely ignore the tiny ones. Because of this, we tend to dismiss small changes, the little steps that don't give instant payoff. If we don't see change fast, we think nothing is happening. That's why small improvements feel useless at first. If you save a little money now, you're still not a millionaire. If you go to the gym 7 days in a row, you're still not in shape. If you eat healthy meals for 3 days, you won't instantly improve your health. We make a few changes, but the results never seem to come quickly. And so we say to ourselves, this isn't worth it. Small changes are like compound interest in life. They build on themselves. What feels invisible today grows silently in the background. Then over time, those tiny steps begin to stack up and tips the balance, and suddenly the small no longer looks small. Imagine you're flying from Los Angeles to New York City. At takeoff, the pilot adjusts the plane just 3.5 degrees south. On the runway, that's barely a few feet, almost unnoticeable. But stretched across the entire United States, that slight adjustment changes everything. Instead of landing in New York, you end up in Washington, D.C., hundreds of miles apart, all from a tiny shift at the beginning. Life works the same way. The small choices you make each day might not seem like the matter in the moment. Choosing to improve by just 1% or decline by 1% feels insignificant, but when those choices are repeated day after day, year after year, they accumulate into an entirely different destination. One path leads you closer to the best version of yourself. The other path, slowly but surely, pulls you away.